Imagine this, $400,000 obliterated in just 30 seconds, completely legal, and oh, so satisfying. Picture a smug HOA president, her cherry-red Lamborghini parked arrogantly across my ranch driveway, boxing me in on my own land for 7 excruciating days. She had her eyes on my lakefront paradise, willing to play dirty to drive me out. But she overlooked one tiny detail, my unusual hobby. Let's just say when a supercar blocks your only way out, sometimes you need a heavier solution to clear the path. My name's Marcus Thompson, a 38-year-old landscape architect who snagged my dream property 15 years ago. 20 acres of Texas bliss with a private lake that glimmers like a sapphire at dawn. 3 years ago, I scattered my wife Emily's ashes across that water. Every morning, I sit by the lake, dip my fingers in, and whisper, "Good morning, sweetheart. This isn't just my home. It's my sacred haven. The house is simple, but the land, especially that lake, is my heart and soul. I've poured my life into it, crafting vibrant gardens, a cozy kayak dock, and what I thought was my forever retreat. Oh, and one more thing about me. Since 2019, I've been part of a tank restoration club. Yep, you read that right, own a fully operational M5 Stuart tank, snagged at a military surplus auction 5 years ago. Every month, I roll out that 15-ton beauty for club events, keeping her pristine with fresh paint and a whole lot of love. Which city in the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you've had any run-ins with an HOA. We'd love to narrate your story on our channel. Oiled tracks and a purring diesel engine, my neighbors all knew about my unusual hobby, and most thought it was pretty cool. The tank sat in my oversized garage, properly registered as a historic military vehicle with license plate TNKU1. Little did I know that my quirky hobby would soon become very, very relevant. The neighborhood had been peaceful for over a decade, until Victoria showed up. Victoria Kensington, 45 years old, had just been elected as the new HO president after moving here from Miami. She drove a cherry-red Lamborghini Aventador, wore oversized Versace sunglasses, even indoors, and carried herself like royalty. Her platinum blonde bob was always perfectly styled, and she never appeared in public without full makeup and designer clothes. What most people didn't know was that Victoria had spectacularly failed with a $50 million resort project in Miami, leaving investors furious and lawyers circling. She'd come to our quiet neighborhood to rebuild her reputation, as I'd later discover. The way she looked at my property during her first visit should have been my warning sign. Victoria's introduction was sweet as sugar. She showed up at my door with a bottle of expensive wine and that fake smile plastered across her face. "Marcus, I've heard you're the best landscape architect in the region. Your gardens and that absolutely stunning lake have such potential to become a community icon," she gushed, peering past me to get a better view. I politely declined her wine and her compliments. "Thank you, but this is my private sanctuary," I said firmly. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and adjusted her sunglasses. "Private in a community? Nothing is truly private, Marcus, dear. We all contribute to the greater good." The way she said greater good made my skin crawl, but I maintained my polite smile and showed her out. Just 2 weeks later, the fines started rolling in like a tsunami of bureaucratic harassment. $500 for non-compliant fencing, that doesn't match the neoclassical aesthetic at $300 for grass exceeding 3 inches. I grew wildflower meadows specifically for the lake's ecosystem, $1,000. For improperly positioned watercraft, my kayak on my own private shoreline, and the big one, $2,000 for military vehicle creating neighborhood eyesore, my tank that was completely hidden inside my closed garage. I called Walter, the 72-year-old retired judge who lived across the street. Can they really find me for a tank inside my own garage? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Walter sighed heavily. With this new hoe, son, they think they can do anything. Be careful. I'm hearing Victoria's planning something big, real big. The truth about Victoria's plans became crystal clear at the Vision 2025 meeting she held at her gaudy mansion. The meeting was mandatory for all homeowners, complete with champagne, fancy appetizers, and a 50-slide PowerPoint presentation. I sat in the back, in arms crossed, as she clicked through slides about community enhancement and property value optimization. Then came slide 50. The room went dead silent as a 3D rendering filled the screen. It showed my private access road transformed into the Kensington Memorial Garden and my lake, my wife's final resting place, labeled as a community water feature with fountain installation. My blood ran cold, then hot, then cold again. I stood up, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage, but remaining steady. That access road is my private property, according to my deed from 2010, and that lake is where my wife's ashes rest. You cannot do this. The room turned to stare at me, some with sympathy, others with the blank look of people who didn't want to get involved. Victoria clicked off the projector with theatrical flair, her voice turning ice cold. Bylaws are updated annually, Mr. Thompson. Your old deed, just outdated paper. As for your personal matter, we would handle any relocations with the utmost respect. Of course, someone whispered behind me. She can't really do this, can she? But Victoria's smile told me she thought she absolutely could. 6:00 a.m. The next morning I was jolted awake by the roar of heavy machinery. I ran outside in my pajamas to find a nightmare scenario unfolding. A sign reading, "Future Community Garden Hoe Approved," was planted right at my gate. A dump truck was actively pouring dirt across half my driveway, while workers had already started digging foundation holes on what was clearly my land. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking with fury. The police arrived within 20 minutes, but after looking at the paperwork Victoria proudly presented, the young officer just scratched his head. "I'm sorry, sir, but this appears to be a civil matter. You'll need to resolve this with your he said apologetically. As he walked away, I caught a glimpse of the permits in Victoria's manicured hands, all dated 3 months ago, 3 months before she'd even mentioned this project. But why would Victoria need construction permits dated 3 months ago? Unless she'd been planning this all along. If you've ever dealt with hoe corruption, type your city in the comments. Let's see how widespread this really is. The morning after the construction crew invaded my property, I knew I needed allies fast. I called an emergency meeting with the only neighbors I thought I could trust. Walter, the 72-year-old retired judge, arrived first, carrying a thick folder that looked like it had seen better days. "I've been investigating Victoria," he said, setting the folder on my kitchen table with a heavy thud. "She was sued in Miami for defrauding investors. That $50 million resort project. It was a shell game for money laundering. And Marcus, I think she had people inside our hoe working for her even before she got elected. This whole thing stinks worse than a dead armadillo. In August, his weathered face was grim as he showed me newspaper clippings and court documents that painted Victoria as a serial scammer who left a trail of financial destruction across 3 states. Sophie Rodriguez showed up next, all 28 years of her buzzing with nervous energy. She was a cybersecurity specialist who had moved here 2 years ago and had her own beef with the hoe after they had forced her to cut down a 100-year-old oak tree her grandfather had planted. I have a friend who works it for the hoe, she said, opening her laptop. He hates Victoria because she makes him work overtime without pay, treats him like dirt. He's willing to give me backdoor access to their server, but it'll take time to crack their security without leaving traces. The thing is, Marcus, we need to be careful if Victoria is as connected as Walter says she might have eyes and ears everywhere. Sophie's fingers were already flying across her keyboard as she spoke, her screen filling with code I couldn't understand. That's when Beatrice Palmer showed up with a tray of her famous blueberry muffins, and my life got a whole lot more complicated. Beatrice was 50 years old, always perfectly put together, and had lived in the neighborhood for 20 years. She had this grandmotherly way about her that made everyone trust her instantly. I heard everything at the meeting, she exclaimed, setting the muffins down and wringing her hands. It's absolutely terrible what Victoria is doing to you, Marcus. I want to help, actually. I overheard her on a phone call yesterday talking about some phase to plan. She was standing in her backyard, and you know how voices carry. She mentioned something about forcing a distressed sale, whatever that means. Beatrix's eyes were wide with concern, and she patted my hand sympathetically, but Sophie wasn't buying it. After Beatrix left, she pulled me aside in my garage, speaking in a low whisper. Don't you find it weird that Beatrice always shows up with baked goods right after the hoe sends out fines? It's like she has a timer set or something. And last week, I saw her taking photos of your house when you were at work. When I asked her about it, she said she was just admiring your flowers. But Marcus, she was photographing your garage door, not your garden. I wanted to dismiss Sophie's concerns, but something nagged at me. Walter jumped into our hushed conversation, his voice grave. I don't like to speak ill of neighbors, but Beatrix's son just got accepted to Harvard. That's $80,000 a year in tuition. Her husband's been on disability for 3 years. Where's that money coming from? The harassment escalated dramatically. Over the next 3 days, the water was shut off for emergency pipe maintenance in the middle of a brutal Texas summer where temperatures hit 100 daily. The power kept accidentally tripping at 2 o'clock a.m. every night, setting off my alarm system and destroying my sleep. Then came the summer flower festival. Victoria set up speakers right against my fence line and blasted EDM music at maximum volume. Starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, I watched from my window as she supervised the setup. That cherry red Lamborghini parked prominently where everyone could see it, like a general surveying her battlefield. I was effectively under siege in my own home, forced to climb over my own fence to get supplies from Walter, because the construction debris still blocked my driveway. But the worst violation came when Victoria organized a lake tour for potential investors. She actually led 20 complete strangers onto my private property, standing at my lake, my wife's sacred resting place. and announcing loudly, "Imagine the future Kensington Lake Resort. Right here, 30 million in profit within 3 years. We'll have jet skis, a beach bar, paddle boats with LED lights for evening tours." My hands clenched into fists as I watched her gesture grandly at the water where I'd scattered Emily's ashes. One investor asked about current ownership, and Victoria waved dismissively. "Technical details being resolved. The current occupant is resistant to progress, but that's temporary." The casual cruelty of calling me an occupant in my own home made my vision blur with rage. Then came the viral moment that changed everything. Victoria decided to live stream from my property, setting up her phone on a tripod with my lake as the backdrop. "Hello, HOA family," she chirped in that fake, sweet voice. "Today I want to show you the future community lake. Currently, we have a small obstacle, but don't worry, it's being handled." That's when I walked into frame, my voice steady. "Despite my fury, you're trespassing on private property. This is my land, my lake, and you have no right to be here." Victoria turned the camera toward me with theatrical shock. "Oh my goodness, why are you being so aggressive? This is about community improvement, security. Please escort this hostile person away from our community development area." 2 hired security guards and ill-fitting uniforms started walking toward me. I stood my ground, speaking clearly for the camera. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. You're the trespasser here." But the guards kept advancing, and I could see Victoria's smirk behind her fake grit. Concern. One of the tourists in her group was recording everything on their phone, and within 2 hours their video was everywhere with the caption, "Ha, Karen tries to steal man's private lake where his wife's ashes rest." And the video exploded across social media, racking up 5 million views in just a few hours. Comments poured in by the thousands. "This is disgusting. How is this legal? Someone helped this poor man." Victoria, Kensington is evil. But even with public opinion on my side, I still felt helpless. The emergency HO meeting that followed was a masterclass in manipulation. I came prepared with every legal document I had, laying out my case clearly and calmly. The room was packed, and I could feel the tide turning in my favor as neighbors nodded along with my presentation. Even people who usually stayed neutral were looking uncomfortable with Victoria's actions. That's when Beatrix stood up, her voice trembling in what I now know was an Oscar-worthy performance. I have to tell the truth. Marcus has been threatening me. I have video proof." The room gasped as she pulled out her phone, and the projection screen lit up with a video of me talking to Walter. But the audio was clearly edited. My voice said, "We'll show her what pain feels like," when what I'd actually said was, "This will show her that I know what pain feels like losing Emily." Victoria jumped up with perfectly timed shock. "Oh my God, violence, threats. We cannot have such a dangerous person in our peaceful community. This explains his aggressive behavior." The momentum shifted instantly. Despite my protest that the video was edited, despite Walter trying to provide context, the damage was done. The HO board voted 15-3 to ban me from all common areas and grant the HO temporary management of my access road for community safety. As people filed out, many avoided eye contact with me. Sophie managed to slip close enough to whisper urgently in my ear. I cracked the server. "Beatrice received $50,000 last week." The memos said Phase 1 testimony. This whole thing was scripted from the beginning. But wait, if Beatrix knew about the secret HO meeting before it was announced, then who told her? Snake. if you saw Beatrix's betrayal coming, or shocked if she fooled you to the steel fence went up overnight like a prison wall around my driveway 8 feet tall, topped with decorative spikes that looked anything but decorative, and plastered with no trespassing property signs. Every 10 feet, I was literally imprisoned on my own land, cut off from the outside world, except for what I could climb over or squeeze through day one of my captivity. I called my lawyer David Johnson, who had helped me with property disputes. Before they can't do this, I shouted into the phone, pacing my living room like a caged animal. David's response made my heart sink there, claiming emergency community safety measures. We can file an injunction, but Marcus, realistically, you're looking at 6 months minimum before we see a courtroom. The legal system moves like molasses, and Victoria knows it. The hoe had effectively weaponized bureaucracy against me. By day 3, my food supplies were running dangerously low. I watched from my window as Walter, bless his 72-year-old heart, attempted to climb my fence with grocery bags. The hoe's hired security immediately appeared, recording him while shouting about criminal trespassing. Walter managed to toss a few essentials over before retreating, but not before giving the guards a piece of his mind that would have made a sailor blush. By day 5, the financial pressure was crushing. I lost a $100,000 commercial landscaping contract because I couldn't make it to the site. My savings, built up over 15 years of hard work, started draining fast between lawyer fees and lost income. But the worst part was the isolation, the feeling of being caged in the one place that should have been my sanctuary. That's when Sophie's security camera footage revealed another layer to Victoria's scheme. Marcus, you need to see this, she said, calling me on a burglary phone Walter had smuggled over the fence. She sent me files showing Beatrice on my property at 3 a.m., a full month before the hoe drama started. The night vision footage was crystal clear. Beatrix taking photos through my windows, trying my door handles, and even attempting to peer into my garage where the tank was stored. Another clip showed her meeting Victoria at a coffee shop, where Victoria handed her a thick envelope. She's been Victoria's spy from the beginning. Sophie explained every muffin delivery was a reconnaissance mission. She knew about your tank, your routines, everything. Victoria didn't just plan this 3 months ago. She's been orchestrating this since the day she arrived in the neighborhood. Saturday morning, the 7th day of my imprisonment, I awoke to bass heavy music that literally shook my windows. It was 7 a.m. and the sound was coming from my own driveway. I looked out to see a sight that made my blood pressure spike to dangerous levels. Victoria had driven her cherry red Lamborghini Aventador directly across my driveway entrance, parking it sideways to completely block any possible exit. But she wasn't just blocking my path, she was making an event out of it. She'd brought a beach chair, a small table, a designer umbrella, and was setting up like she was at a luxury resort. The music blasted from her car's premium sound system, and she pulled out a bottle of champagne and crystal glasses. She started live streaming immediately, her phone on a professional tripod. Good morning, family. I'm here at the future garden entrance, showing you how we're transforming hostile spaces into community gathering spots. Isn't this view amazing? Her camera panned across my property like she owned it. Within minutes, her car brigade arrived in force. One brought a banner reading "Peaceful Protest Against Hostile Homeowner," which they hung on my fence. Another started doing yoga poses on the Lamborghini's hood for her social, turning my imprisonment into a block party. A tourist with a professional drone happened to be driving by and started filming the spectacle from above, capturing every detail in 4000 resolution. Victoria raised her champagne glass to the camera, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Cheers to community development. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? And speaking of breaking things, she let the threat hang in the air while her friends laughed. I called 911 for what felt like the 100th time. There's a vehicle completely blocking my driveway. I'm trapped on my property, I explained, trying to keep my voice calm. The dispatcher sounded tired. Sir, I show multiple calls from your address. The HO has filed an event permit for a community gathering. Unless there's violence or medical emergency, we can't intervene in civil matters. The system had failed me completely. That's when something inside me snapped. But it wasn't rage, it was clarity. I looked at that red Lamborghini at Victoria, posing with her champagne at the banner, calling me hostile for defending my own home. I remembered Emily's voice from years ago when I'd bought the tank. Anything. Then she'd grown serious and added, I love your strength, Marcus. Don't ever let anyone push you around. Standing there watching Victoria literally toast to stealing my property, I knew exactly what Emily would want me to do. I walked to my garage with purpose, my decision made. American steel, the olive green paint gleamed, the tracks were perfectly maintained, and the diesel engine started on the first try. During last month's club meeting, my tank registration was up to date, my special vehicle license valid, my insurance current, historic military vehicle, the paper said, street legal with restrictions. Well, I wasn't planning on taking it on the street. This was private property, my private property. I climbed into the driver's position and found my old helmet with the Make Way Not War sticker. I put on my worn leather jacket with the tank restoration club patches. If Victoria wanted to play games, I was about to flip the board. The garage door opened with its usual mechanical groan, but today it sounded like the opening notes of a symphony. The massive diesel engine roared to life, sending vibrations through the concrete that I could feel in my bones. The ground literally shook as 15 tons of military history began to move. Victoria was mid-selfie when her champagne glass started vibrating. What the wow? She began turning toward my garage. The look on her face when she saw the tank was priceless. Her perfectly mad-up face went from smug satisfaction to complete shock in about 2 seconds. The drone operator above us zoomed in, not believing what he was seeing. This was about to become the most watched HO dispute in internet history. The Instagram live viewer count on Victoria's phone jumped from 10,000 to 50,000 to 100,000. In the span of 30 seconds, the comment section exploded. Is that a tank? Holy go Marcus. This is better than Netflix. The Karen brigade scattered like bowling pins. Karen number 2 fell off the Lamborghini hood trying to run. Karen number 3 was still recording, but her hand was shaking so badly the footage looked like an earthquake. Victoria finally found her voice and screamed, "Zero car, I'll sue you for everything you have." On concrete, the diesel engine's steady roar, and above it all, Victoria's increasingly hysterical screams. The Lamborghini, for all its Italian engineering and carbon fiber construction, met the tank and immediately started to buckle. The crunching sound was oddly satisfying, like stepping on a really expensive piece of bubble wrap. Metal screamed, glass exploded in a shower of expensive fragments, and $400. Zero of supercar compressed like a red aluminum can. The tank rolled completely over it, leaving behind what looked like a very expensive modern art installation. The whole thing took maybe 30 seconds, but the internet would replay those 30 seconds. Millions of times I drove the tank back into the garage, parked it perfectly, and stepped out. I calmly walked past the destroyed Lamborghini, past the speechless Karens, past Victoria, who was now on her knees next to her flattened car. The driveway is clear now. I said simply, "Sorry about your car, but it was blocking my path. You know how it is with private property rights." The drone footage was already uploading to YouTube with the title, "Real Tank Crushes Karen's Lambo." Not clickbait. Within an hour, it had 20 million views, and climbing the internet had its new favorite. I really just crush a Lamborghini with a tank. And why is Victoria smiling? Be honest, would you have done the same thing? Comment yes or no. The internet absolutely exploded in the hours after I turned Victoria's Lamborghini into a very expensive pancake. The footage went beyond viral and became a cultural phenomenon. Overnight, Twitter split into two warring factions, with Team Marcus posting things like "legend" and "tank beats Lambo every time," while Team Victoria responded with "terrorist" and "lock this psycho up." The memes came fast and furious, with someone creating a Drake format meme, rejecting calling a lawyer and approving calling a tank. Even Elon Musk weighed in with a tweet saying, "Tank 1, Lambo 0 Cybertruck would survive though," which got 3 million likes in an hour. Joe Rogan demanded I come on his podcast immediately. News channels went crazy, with CNN running "Texas man uses tank against hoe," while Fox News countered with "veteran defense property rights with military vehicle." Within 6 hours of the incident, I was served with a lawsuit that could only be described as legal carpet bombing. Victoria wasn't just throwing the book at me, she was throwing the entire library. The charges included destruction of property valued at $400, zero emotional distress seeking $500,000 in damages, assault with a deadly weapon, domestic terrorism, and 10 other charges that her lawyers probably invented on the spot. The total demand was $2 million, plus 10 years in prison. She had hired James Sterling, known as the $2 million lawyer, because that was what he had won in his last case, and also what he charged his ultra-wealthy clients annually. Sterling held a press conference within hours, standing on the courthouse steps in his $10 zero suit. My client was attacked with a military weapon while peacefully exercising her hoe duties. "This is domestic terrorism," he declared dramatically. I hired David Johnson, a property rights specialist, who had made his name fighting hoe overreach cases across Texas. David reviewed the footage and actually laughed out loud. "The Lamborghini was blocking your private driveway for 4 hours. You called the police 10 times. Texas law is clear about removing obstructions from your property. The fact that you used a tank instead of a tow truck doesn't change the legal principle." While our legal teams prepared for war, Sophie continued her digital excavation of the HO servers. Marcus, there are layers of encryption here. Whatever Victoria is hiding, she really doesn't want it found, but I'm finding fragments about Project Lakeside and transfers to offshore accounts. This is bigger than just stealing your property. Walter organized a grassroots campaign with over 200 residents signing a petition supporting me and sharing their own stories of hoe harassment under Victoria's regime. Victoria and Sterling fought back with every dirty trick in the book. They hired a PR firm to flood social media with poor victim Victoria stories. Fake witnesses started coming forward, claiming they saw me driving the tank like a madman through the neighborhood, even though the drone footage clearly showed me driving about 5 meters an hour. Someone even photoshopped Nazi symbols onto my tank photos, which were quickly debunked, but not before being shared thousands of times. Beatrick continued playing the innocent neighbor, giving interviews about how scared she was of me, while Sophie tracked 3 separate meetings between her and Sterling's legal team. The preliminary hearing arrived with the courthouse becoming a complete circus. Media vans lined the street, protesters held signs both for and against me, and someone was selling t-shirts with my tank on them. Judge Patricia Wilson presided, a tough but fair woman known for not tolerating theatrics in her courtroom. Sterling opened with maximum drama, gesturing wildly as he spoke. Your Honor, imagine a peaceful Saturday morning, birds chirping, and my client enjoying coffee in her car. Suddenly, the ground shakes and a tank appears. This isn't Mad Max, Your Honor. This is supposed to be civilized society, David Johnson responded with calm precision. Your Honor, my client was illegally imprisoned on his property for 7 days. His access was blocked by construction debris. He called the police 10 times on the morning in question. Mrs. Kensington parked her vehicle sideways across his driveway for over 4 hours. Texas Penal Code, Section 9.4141, clearly states that a person is justified in using force to protect their property. The judge raised an eyebrow, but counsel, he used a tank. Johnson didn't miss a beat. It's a legally registered historic military vehicle, Your Honor, no different under the law than using a Ford F-150, just heavier. Sterling's first witness was clearly coached, but fell apart under cross-examination. I saw Mr. Thompson driving that tank aggressively. The man testified when Johnson asked where he was during the incident. The witness hesitated. Nearby? How nearby? What's your address? I live in Houston, the gallery murmured. Since Houston was 3 hours away. The second witness was Beatrick, who put on an Oscar-worthy performance of fake tears. Marcus always threatened me. I'm so scared. But when Johnson asked for evidence, she slipped up. The video was edited. The video clearly shows. Sterling quickly interrupted, claiming his witness was too emotional to continue. Judge Wilson was clearly growing frustrated with Sterling's tactics when the courtroom doors burst open. Sophie rushed in, laptop in one hand and a USB drive in the other. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption, but I have critical evidence from the OHO server. Sterling jumped up like he had been electrocuted. Objection. This is clearly illegally obtained evidence. Sophie held up a document. I have a court order permitting investigation based on formal complaints from 50 residents regarding missing HO funds, Your Honor. Judge Wilson examined the order carefully. This order appears to be valid. I'll allow the evidence to be presented. She banged her gavel decisively. Court will recess for 15 minutes while the evidence is prepared. Victoria grabbed Sterling's arm, her face pale beneath her makeup. You said everything was handled. You said the servers were secure, Sterling whispered urgently in her ear, but she pushed him away violently. I could see the fear creeping into her eyes as Sophie set up her laptop with a small smile on her face. Your Honor, I haven't presented my most important evidence yet. May I show you what Victoria didn't want anyone to see? What do you think? Sophie found. Drop your wildest guess below before continuing. Sophie connected her laptop to the courtroom's display system with steady hands. though I could see the excitement in her eyes. The entire courtroom held its breath as the first email appeared on the screen. Your Honor, I'll present this evidence in clear sections so everyone can follow along. Sophie announced the first email was dated 3 months ago from Victoria's official HAO president account to something called the Dubai Investment Group. The subject line alone made my stomach drop. Lake Property Acquisition Phase Implementation. The email body was even worse. Gentlemen, the Lake Property Acquisition is moving forward. Perfectly current owner remains unaware of our full intentions. Phase 1, take control of access road through Ho. Emergency powers. Phase 2, create financial pressure to force distressed sale. Phase 3, develop Kensington Lake Resort. Projected profit, $30 million. Within 3 years, the property owner has sentimental attachment which will exploit emotional decisions, lead to poor negotiations. The gallery erupted in shocked gasps and angry mutters. Someone shouted, "She planned it all along." Another voice called out, "Criminal." Judge Wilson banged her gavel, repeatedly demanding order, but Sophie wasn't done, not even close. The second email appeared. This one from 6 months ago, between Victoria and someone in the city planning department, as discussed. I need permits predated to avoid scrutiny. The 10-0 cash will be in the usual spot. Make sure the dates show 3 months ago. The reply was equally damning. Done, permits backdated as requested. Pleasure doing business with you. The judge's eyebrows practically hit her hairline, and I saw her make a note that probably meant someone at city planning was about to have a very bad day. The third email was the one that made Beatrix sink down in her seat, like she was trying to disappear. From Victoria to Beatrix, dated 2 weeks ago. Remember, the Plan Act supportive of Marcus, initially to gain trust. 50-0 when you testify, as discussed. VP position guaranteed after takeover. Your son's Harvard admission is secured through my connection in admissions. Don't worry about the edited video. My tech person assured me it will hold up in court. Just stick to the script we rehearsed. The courtroom exploded into chaos. People were on their feet, shouting. Victoria's supporters looked confused and began edging toward the exits. My supporters were calling for arrests. Through it all, Beatrix sat frozen, tears streaming down her face, real ones. This time, Judge Wilson hammered her gavel so hard I thought it might break order. I will have order in my courtroom. When the noise finally died down, Victoria shot to her feet, her perfectly composed mask finally cracking. Fake, it's all fake, deep fake, artificial intelligence, Photoshop. Her voice grew shriller with each word. That's not my email. I've been hacked. Marcus set me up. He's a criminal mastermind. Sophie remained calm, pulling up additional data. Your Honor, these emails contain digital signatures that are mathematically impossible to forge. They were sent from Mrs. Kensington's verified account from her home IP address. The timestamps correspond exactly with her phone's GPS data showing her at home. The metadata is intact and shows no signs of tampering. I have here a sworn affidavit from a digital forensics expert confirming the authenticity of these communications. Sterling tried desperately to salvage the situation, Your Honor. We need time to verify this supposedly authentic evidence. This could all be an elaborate fabrication. David Johnson stood up smoothly. What's to verify? Digital signatures don't lie. Metadata doesn't lie. The only lies in this courtroom came from Mrs. Kensington and her purchased witnesses. Victoria screamed, Marcus hacked me. He's trying to destroy me because I want to improve the community. Judge Wilson fixed her with a stare that could freeze hell. Mrs. Kensington, if you cannot control yourself, I will hold you in contempt of court. Sit down and be quiet. But Sophie was just getting warmed up now. Let's follow the money, she said, clicking to the next screen. The display showed banking records that made everything crystal clear. A transfer of $50. Zero from the HOA account to Beatrix Palmer's personal checking account, dated last week. The memo line: Reed Consulting, Phase 1. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Sophie scrolled through 15 more transfers over 6 months, smaller amounts designed to fly under the radar. The total was $75. Zero, all from HO funds, meant for community improvements, all going directly into Beatrix's pocket. The courtroom turned to stare at Beatrix, who suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can explain, Beatrix cried out, but security guards moved to block her from fleeing. The words poured out of her in a desperate flood. Victoria forced me, she said. She'd foreclose on my house. She knew about my husband's medical bills, about my son needing money for Harvard. She said she owned judges, owned the police, that nobody could stop her. I was terrified. She made me spy on Marcus, take pictures of his property report, on his routines. She knew about the tank from the beginning. She said it would be the perfect excuse. If Marcus fought back, she wanted him to snap. Beatrix turned to me, mascara running down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry I betrayed you for money and fear. Sterling whispered urgently in Victoria's ear, but she shoved him away violently. Beatrix, now in full confession mode, continued her verbal avalanche. She's done this before. Check her history: Miami, Las Vegas, Phoenix. She finds properties with sentimental value and forces people out. She has a whole system. The edited video was her idea. She has a tech person who specializes in deep fakes. She made me practice my testimony 20 times, she said. Emotional testimony always beats facts. Judge Wilson interrupted. Ma'am, are you aware you're admitting to conspiracy to commit fraud? Beatrix nodded miserably. Yes, I did it all, but I was a victim to check her servers. There's more, so much more. Victoria lunged at Beatrix with a shriek of rage. Shut up, you stupid cow, you're ruining everything. Security guards restrained at her as she continued screaming, I made you, I gave you money, you owe me loyalty. Sterling tried to stand up, possibly to leave, but Judge Wilson's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down, Mr. Sterling, you're not going anywhere until I say so. The prestigious lawyer sank back into his chair, his face the color of spoiled milk. Sophie clicked to her final piece of evidence, and this was the nuclear bomb. Your Honor, these are the official HO financial records. She announced, the screen filled with spreadsheets that told a story of breathtaking theft. The HO Community Fund should have contained $2.5 million, accumulated over years of resident fees meant for neighborhood improvements. The actual balance was $287. Sophie highlighted where the missing $2.2 million had gone. $400,000 for a Lamborghini listed as HO President Transportation. $150,000 for multiple Maldives vacations filed as HO Planning Retreats. $200,000 for Hermes bags and jewelry recorded as HO Recognition Gifts. But the biggest chunk, $1.40, $4 million, had simply vanished in cash withdrawals with no documentation whatsoever. Sophie delivered the killing blow. And here's a screenshot of Mrs. Kensington's Dubai bank account showing a deposit of exactly $1.4 million, made in increments, matching the Ho withdrawals. The courtroom went dead silent. Even Victoria had stopped screaming, her face cycling through colors. I didn't know human faces could achieve. Sterling stood up slowly, Your Honor. I need to withdraw from this case immediately due to a conflict of interest that has just come to my attention. Judge Wilson's voice could have cut steel, Mr. Sterling. You will remain exactly where you are until I determine whether you were aware of your client's criminal activities. One more attempt to leave, and I'll have you arrested for contempt. Victoria finally found her voice again, and it was the sound of complete mental breakdown. You can't do this to me. Do you know who my father is? He owns half of Texas, half of the judges. I'll destroy all of you. I'll bury you in lawsuits. You'll never work again, any of you. Judge Wilson had heard enough. She banged her gavel with finality. I've seen more than enough evidence to make my determinations. Number 1, the case against Mr. Thompson is dismissed with prejudice. He was defending his property against criminal conspiracy. Number 6, Mrs. Victoria Kensington, you are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and bribery of public officials. Number 3, Mrs. Beatrice Palmer, you are under arrest for conspiracy and providing false testimony. Number 4, Mr. Sterling, the State Bar will be investigating your conduct in this case immediately. And number 5, Mr. Thompson, you are fined $54 operating a tank on a public road without proper permits. Don't do it again. The police moved in to arrest Victoria, who screamed like a banshee. My father will buy this entire court system. You're all dead, do you hear me? Dead. I'll be out in an hour, and I'll destroy your lives. As they dragged her away, her perfect hair in disarray, her designer suit wrinkled, she looked nothing like the composed president who'd started this war. She looked like what she'd always been underneath, a common criminal who'd finally been caught. The judge banged his gavel, but Victoria's final words sent chills down my spine. You have no idea who my father really is, do you? Comment justice if you're satisfied with the verdict, or not enough if you wanted worse for Victoria. 6 months after the courtroom explosion that changed everything, the final sentences came down like hammers of justice. Victoria Kensington received 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The judge, displaying a wicked sense of humor that made me smile, also sentenced her to 100 hours of community service, specifically cleaning public lakes. The irony was not lost on anyone in that courtroom. She had to pay back $2.2 million to the Ho residents she had robbed blind. The best part was the lifetime ban from serving in any Ho position anywhere in the United States. The cherry on top of this, Justice Sunday came, when we learned the truth about her supposedly powerful father. Turns out the daddy was already serving 10 to 15 years for tax fraud and money laundering. Like father, like daughter. Indeed, the apple had not fallen far from the criminal tree. Beatrice Palmer got off lighter with a 2-year suspended sentence. The judge ordered her to post a public apology on her social media accounts, which ended up getting 127,000 views and thousands of comments, ranging from supportive to absolutely scathing. She also had to testify against Victoria in the federal case, providing damning details about similar schemes in 3 other states. James Sterling, the $2 million lawyer, lost his license for 1 year after the bar Investigation found he had knowingly presented false evidence. His high-profile clients dropped him faster than a hot potato, and he now teaches ethics and law at a community college. The city planner, who had backdated those permits, got fired immediately and faced criminal charges. He ended up flipping on 10 other corruption cases to reduce his sentence. The dominoes of corruption kept falling for months when the dust finally settled. The court ordered Victoria's seized assets to be distributed. Among her many victims, I received $500, zero in compensation for my troubles. But instead of keeping it all for myself, I decided to use it for healing our community. $50,000 went to repair all the damage the hoe had caused to my property. $200,000 went to establish the tank, the hoe legal defense fund, which provides free legal assistance to homeowners facing hoe abuse across the country, in a move that shocked everyone, including myself. Initially, they set aside $50, zero for a college scholarship for Beatrix's son. The reporters could not understand why I would help the child of someone who had betrayed me so badly. The son did not commit his mother's crimes. I told them simply, sometimes forgiveness heals more than revenge ever could. When Beatrice heard about the scholarship, she broke down crying. In the middle of the grocery store, Sophie became a tech world celebrity. Practically overnight, after her brilliant performance in court, Microsoft, Google, and Apple all tried to recruit her with massive salary offers. She took the Microsoft position, but negotiated pro bono work into her contract, spending her weekends helping other HOO victims uncover digital evidence. My tank, meanwhile, became an absolute legend in its own right. I officially registered it as a historical monument vehicle with special commemorative plates. The charity auction for the custom license plate Tenku 1 raised $25,000 for veteran services. Now I give monthly tank tours to local schools, teaching kids about standing up to bullies and the importance of maintaining vintage military equipment. The tank has somehow become the hottest wedding photo backdrop in all of Texas. Couples drive hundreds of miles to pose with the love tank that crushed tyranny. Every April 15th, our town celebrates Tank Day to commemorate when democracy literally rolled over corruption. The parade features my tank leading a procession of veterans, classic cars, and creative floats made by local schools. There is a festival with tank-shaped cakes, bounce houses designed like tanks, and kids wearing cardboard tank costumes. The crushed Lamborghini found new life when a local artist bought the wreckage for $150,000. He transformed it into a sculpture called When Karma Weighs 15 Tons, now permanently displayed at City Hall. The plaque reads, in memory of the day one man's stand against injustice inspired a community to reclaim its freedom. Every time I pass it, I cannot help but smile at how something so destructive became art. The hoe went through absolute chaos after Victoria's arrest, with 5 different people claiming to be the rightful president. Finally, Walter stepped up and restored order with wisdom and fairness under his temporary leadership. We created a new hoe structure based on radical transparency. Every decision requires an online vote with full visibility to all residents. Financial records update live on a public website for anyone to review. Monthly third-party audits ensure no funny business can happen again. Board terms are limited to 2 years maximum to prevent power accumulation. Our new motto is simple: but powerful neighbors, not rulers. The first vote under the new system was whether tank owners should be welcomed in the community. The result was 95% yes, with the 5% no votes coming from new residents who did not know the story at dawn. On this peaceful morning, I sat fishing at my lake, just like I had dreamed of doing. Freely again the mist rose off the water, like Emily's spirit saying good morning. To me, I touched the water gently and whispered my daily greeting to her. "We won, sweetheart. Your lake is safe forever now." Walter jogged by on his morning route, still moving well for 72. "Any luck with the fish this morning?" he called out cheerfully. "Doesn't matter if they bite or not," I replied, with genuine contentment. "What matters is that I can sit here without anyone blocking my way." Sophie ran past wearing one of our Tank the Hoe fundraiser shirts. "Morning, Marcus," she called out. "Oh, guess what, a new Karen just moved into Block C. She is already complaining about people having barbecues." I chuckled and pointed toward my garage. "Tell her I keep the tank fully fueled and it now has 4K cameras installed." I looked straight ahead and spoke. "My final thoughts: sometimes protecting your paradise requires extreme measures. It doesn't have to be a tank, it could be cameras, evidence, or community unity. But if you happen to have a tank available, well, why not use it? Remember that your home is your castle. Don't let any Karen with a red Lambo think she can steal it. And if you're being bullied by your hoe right now, document everything thoroughly. Fight smart and stand your ground. Sometimes the best way to handle a bully is with 15 tons of American-made democracy. Peace out, friends. Keep your tanks fueled, your cameras rolling, and your spirits high. The battle for our homes and our rights never truly ends. So what happened to that new Karen who wanted to ban BBQs? Well, let's just say she Googled my name, saw the tank video, and suddenly decided barbecues smell amazing. Has this story inspired you to stand up to your hoe? Comment tank mode if you're ready to fight back, and hey, share this with someone who needs to hear that bullies don't always win, whether they drive a Lambo or run an H.